You all set?
Yep.
Cozy enough?
Cozy as I'll ever be.
Great, let's get this going.
Hi, and we're so glad you stopped by to check out this new podcast.
Negotiate with yourself and win.
With me, Jeremy Sherman.
And me, Jeremy Sherman.
An exercise in
mono-dialogues.
me talking to myself.
Working things out.
And on what?
Everything practical.
About everyday life.
In a big sweep history.
Cradle to grave.
From our cradle at the origins of life to
our grave situation.
Probably need to unpack that.
We do.
You?
No, why don't you take it?
You start.
Okay, well, for me, it started with 20 years as a full-time activist struggling against what seemed like humanity's grave unsustainability.
Still does.
Only more so, 'cause, damn.
I lived for 7 years on the world's largest hippie commune,
The Farm.
Founded a national lobbying organization on environmental issues with 75 chapters.
Ran public affairs for green companies.
Ancient history.
I capped my career in activism with an education in it, a master's in public policy at UC Berkeley, that sobered up my
optimism and got me wondering why humanity wasn't making the headway we needed on sustainability.
Not just.
No, actually it was a midlife crisis.
No red sports car, but a sobering of my expectations.
To be honest, a total cosmic wedgie.
But not terminal. Instead, I got interested in the cradle of humanity and took a PhD in decision theory and evolutionary theory.
Fancy name. Evolutionary epistemology.
But not as bookish as it sounds.
Still kind of an activist. I was interested in how to apply what I was learning to everyday life.
So I wrote a book called Negotiate with Yourself and Win, mind-minding skills for people who could hear themselves think.
And lordy, could I hear myself think.
Since very young.
And what I thought wasn't always pretty.
It troubled me enough that my folks put me in 1,000 hours of Freudian psychoanalysis starting at age 8.
I asked them to. Some cry for help.
Psychoanalysis is a lot of listening to yourself think.
And then another 1,000 hours starting at about 30.
A luxury, certainly, but not a vacation.
No. The truth shall make you freak.
That much wrangling aloud with my dark side.
My shadow.
I got to hear a whole lot of inner yuck.
Over the course of it, I went from avoidance to panic to nervous laughter and eventually to relatively easy laughter.
I stopped wondering what was wrong with me, turning my attention to what was up with us.
What makes humans tick?
Like time bombs.
Coming through that midlife crisis at about 40, I stopped dreading my inner dialogue.
From the endless nagging, like why do my inner weasel and inner scold have me by the throat,
to loving it.
We do have a good time.
Yeah, because people,
like me,
and me,
and I'm going to say you,
are a hoot.
We are.
From the get-go.
The cradle.
Okay, but are they following all this?
It doesn't matter. The gist, that's what counts.
Yeah, it'll become clearer.
During that PhD, I started working with a researcher named Terence Deacon, a Harvard biological anthropologist / neuroscientist. He just finished a 20-year project on the evolution of language.
What language is and the biophysiology of how it evolved.
And how having it changes us, making us something different from just another mid-sized mammal.
When I met him, Deacon was just turning his attention to the deeper cradle, the origins of life, of selves, of effort.
See, chemistry doesn't make effort.
It's not trying to do anything.
But organisms try.
All organisms trying to survive and reproduce.
So what are selves and effort, and how do they start?
How did mattering emerge from matter?
Life from chemistry.
Life is something different from nothing but chemistry.
Nothing added to make us come alive. We're still just chemistry.
But not just any chemistry.
Chemistry that makes effort.
What's up with that? How do you explain it?
Terry and I,
and others,
have been working at a solution to that.
Working together almost 25 years now.
Long time, though not as long as you and I have been working together.
That's true. We go way back.
So that's why I see my work as from cradle to grave, from the origins of life through the evolution of language to our grave situation.
That was my transition out of midlife crisis into my middle-age spread.
Big spread.
A natural history of us.
From origins of life to our lives.
And looking at the stuff we all do to one degree or another.
That helps explain how we got to the edge of sustainability. Not just me and my condition, but the human condition.
Which is why monodialogue is a good medium for me. I'm us.
Me too.
And so are you.
And you.
Inner and outer dialogues have a lot in common.
One more thing and we can get to the monodialogues.
Yeah, just one more, about our grave situation.
I'm a psychoproctologist,
I try to understand human butt-headedness,
trying to define absolute butt-headedness.
total jerkdom.
Absolute as distinct from the everyday jerks we all are.
'Cause everybody jerks someone around sometime.
I sure do.
Me too.
Yeah, so what is an absolute butthead, since it can't just be whoever you happen to butt heads with?
What objectively distinguishes absolute buttheads, and how do you stop them without becoming one?
Monodialogues already.
Sure, enough about me.
And me.
This first one is an exploration. Two me's trying to make sense of what I'll call my double standard on double standards. I can't believe it. Some people are like total hypocrites.
What brings this on?
I was talking to a friend, or at least someone I thought was a friend. He's very judgmental, always acting woke and principled, but he's two-faced. One minute he's judging, but if I voice my opinion, he says, "Don't be judgmental," to shut me up.
So he uses different standards.
Yeah, he's a total jerk.
But you use different standards too.
What do you mean?
You're always saying context matters, different strokes for different folks, and depends on the situation.
Yeah, but this is different.
So you have two standards about double standards?
No, really, it's different.
How?
Well,
Good of you to think about it.
here's a guess. I'm for different standards for different situations, but there's got to be some overall standard.
And what's that?
Reality.
What do you mean, reality?
Look, I won't pretend I know what's real. I can only guess. But I think there's a category called reality that would include all the, I don't know.
All the facts?
Yeah.
But what counts as a fact?
Things you can't change no matter how much you insist.
Like gravity?
Right, like gravity. That's a good example because we all agree about it.
Well, maybe there's someone out there like a flat earther who insists gravity isn't real.
Sure, but they don't act like it. They still act like gravity is real.
So it's not enough to claim that something isn't real. What matters is if you act like it's real.
Yeah, walk the talk. So even if this guy insists gravity isn't real, look at how he walks. If he walks adjusted to gravity, then ignore the lip service he gives to claiming gravity is an illusion.
I get that. Some people say, really, there's no reality.
Same thing. If they say really, then their claim that there's no reality is just lip service.
Okay, but gravity is easy. We all have to abide by it. People disagree about a whole lot of supposed facts. So how do we decide what's real?
Well, that's a big one. And you're right. People go around saying really and in fact just to insist on something.
You're saying reality is the set of all things that don't change no matter how hard you insist.
That's right. We will debate what fits that set, but really no one ever acts as though the set of real facts doesn't exist.
I get you.
So when I say things depend on context, what I mean is that reality matters. It should guide, for example, when we should be judgmental and when we shouldn't.
But you just said what counts as real is debatable.
I did. So I don't have some hard rule about when, for example, to judge or not judge. Still, I think what we mean by two-faced is different.
How so?
Well, take my ex-friend. When he judges all over the place, and then when I express an opinion he doesn't like, he says no one should ever judge, I don't guess that's about reality. I think that's about him refusing to be challenged.
Okay, so you have standards that change depending on real circumstances. That's a kind of moral relativity, but based on guesses about what's real.
Yeah, and I'm saying maybe there's a different kind of moral relativity that's not about reality, but about changing the rules every step of the way to keep winning.
So like thinking that driving cars is not okay for toddlers, but it's fine for adults, that's a relativism that's consistent and based on reality. Thinking that it's fine for me to judge and not fine for you to judge is a relativism that's based on me wanting to always win. There's reality-based moral relativism, and then there's self-serving relativism.
Yes, and I should be clear. I'm sure I use that self-serving relativism too sometimes. I think we all do.
Well, if we all do it, why would your friend now be your ex-friend?
Because it's just so relentless from him. And it's not just his self-serving relativism. It's that when I challenge him on it, he denies any relativism at all. He says he is firmly committed to moral absolutism. One should never, ever judge.
How then does he explain his judgments?
Oh, he comes up with some alternative explanation for them. They're not judgments. He's just speaking his mind. Or he'll attack me for trying to curb his freedom of speech or whatever.
That way he can pretend he's living by an absolute black and white neutral standard, and then just slide the standard around to keep you from voicing your opinion while he gets to voice his.
Right. He gets to claim absolute purity he doesn't have to live by.
I'm reminded of the Serenity Prayer.
Like AA?
No, nor religion, because it applies whether we're religious or not. It's kind of a real-world double standard.
Yes, serenity versus courage. You want the wisdom to apply two relative standards depending on your real situation.
That's right. Like you've got this slider control and you're tracking reality as best as you can read it.
Never perfect, because none of us can claim to know all that's real, but still with respect to reality.
Reading it is right. It's not like reality is dictated or revealed to us. We interpret it.
Never perfect, because none of us can claim to know all that's real, but still with respect for reality. Hence the constant quest or prayer to apply your reality-based relativism ever better. Trying to read the situation.
Reading it is right. It's not like reality is dictated or revealed to us. We interpret it.
Yeah, as with reading, always open to interpretation.
And there's reading it with more or less bias in your favor. Like imagine a variation that instead of ending with, and the wisdom to know the difference, ended with, and the pride to pretend I don't need the wisdom, because I already know that one should always live by whichever one I'm living by in the moment to keep myself feeling proud of myself.
That's good. Maybe that's the difference. Two versions of relativism. Relativism where you're tracking reality best you can, and relativism where you're tracking whatever doesn't threaten your pride.
The irony is that self-serving hypocrites often talk like moral relativism is a bad thing, when actually they're the ones using the self-serving relativism that's worse.
Well, yeah, that's the thing. They pretend they're not relativists.
And does the Serenity Prayer deal with judgment? Or is that like some different Serenity Prayer?
In a way, yes. The courage to change things would include voicing your opinion, declaring a judgment. This has got to change. The serenity is to shut up, not to be judgmental. Let things pass uncriticized.
But you could also do a Serenity Prayer just on judgment. Grant me the serenity to not judge what can't be improved, the courage to judge what can be improved, and the wisdom to know the difference.
Not the smugness to judge when I want and not let others judge against me.
Not the pride to pretend you don't have some double standard when actually you have a self-serving double standard.
Yeah, something like that.
But would you claim that you're never a hypocrite who uses self-serving double standards that you pretend are absolute?
Certainly not. I'm human. I don't know anyone who doesn't do that sometimes.
So again, why drop this friend?
Because with him, it's just wall to wall. He seems to have fallen all the way for self-serving relativism dressed up as moral absolutism. I could be wrong about him, but I'm guessing it's time to bail. When someone seems at perfect peace with not walking his talk, I'll walk because there's no talking to them.
It's the self-serving relativism dressed up as fake absolutism that bugs you.
Yeah, absolute rules he doesn't follow. Absolute confidence that he's the neutral umpire who gets to call fair and foul by absolute moral standards and always defends himself as fair and me as foul. Why stick around?
That was fun.
Yeah, over the years, you and I have gotten better at working together.
So it seems.
We can do this again sometime.
Definitely. Soon.
Yeah. Subscribe, please, and give us some feedback on this maiden voyage, this trial run, because it's a work in progress, as are we.
See you next time.
Are you leaving?
Them, not you.
Good. Me neither.
Joined at the hip, so to speak.
Thanks for listening to Negotiate with yourself and win.
and win.
See you next time.
We said that already.